Hello everyone, welcome to Bitcoin Not Crypto. You can find me on Twitter X at Forest Total. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to deal with pushback against Bitcoin. If you bring it up in conversation to some of your friends, family, even online, you will probably receive some pushback because of how people have formed an opinion on it. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about my experience with this and how I've been able to deal with some of this. And hopefully it helps some of you, because there's been a lot of pushback against people and they just kind of shut it out. They might not talk about it anymore. They might just, stay humble, stack sats, which is fine. But, Bitcoin benefits from the network effect. And of course, a lot of people try to help other people by orange pilling them, which it does help them, because Bitcoin is something that everyone needs, whether they know it or not, which is a difficult position to be in once you've realized that, because you're almost trying to save people, which you might not be the best position to be in, might put yourself in some sticky situations. And it's best to evaluate how much you want to evangelize Bitcoin and how much you should learn about the process of doing so. Before I get into it though, I want to tell you guys about where I buy all of my Bitcoin, which is on the Bitcoin Well, and they're a non-custodial exchange, which means you don't open yourself up to third-party counterparty risk, and they send you your Bitcoin directly when you send them dollars to your cold storage. And they have non-KYC options. They have the lowest spreads in US and Canada. And you can use my code, which is in the description, and you'll actually get yourself some free Bitcoin, which there's not much of that going around, so jump on that. The other sponsor of the show is Stampseed. You can use my code BTCNotCrypto15 to get 15% off of the Stampseed kit, which is a titanium seed phrase plate where you can stamp your seed in. It's much better than having it on paper or having it stored digitally or something like that, which is just not how you want to store your seed phrase. I highly recommend Stampseed. It's a great kit. It's what I use personally, and you can use my code to get 15% off. So check that out. Now, first off, if you bring up Bitcoin to somebody and, some of the response might just be, oh, Bitcoin's a scam, or, I've missed the train on this, or something like that, right? Or they might be more pushback against it than even that alone. The first thing I would want to do if I was willing to have this conversation with this individual, if I felt like, they could understand it, or if they were open enough to it, given a little bit of conversation, or if I just felt personally up to it, I would at first try to hit them with some logic, like, fiat can be printed for free and we have to work for it. And people have, a closeness to that money printer, and it's just a very unfair system. I would talk about how Bitcoin has a cost of production and how that has been how we've had sound money in the past, and compare it to something like gold, but for a digital age, right? And of course, you have to hit this stuff on very basic general terms and, comparisons like that, because it's not entirely accurate, but it's a way to get in the door, and then, on that person's interest, they can further discover it and further learn about it. And basically, with that, explain that there is no way to acquire it other than to exchange goods or services for it, or to mine it directly, which is close to the cost of acquiring it through other ways, like I said, through goods and services. That's going to initially get some pushback. They might even push back with some questions that you don't really have the answers for. So I would immediately, upon that pushback, I would switch up the stance, because when somebody questions you, you end up being on the defensive and you're having to defend what Bitcoin is. Instead, it's much easier to put them on the defensive. So I would ask, questions like, who controls money? Who controls fiat? I would ask questions like, what do you think Bitcoin is? Or why are you against Bitcoin? What is the problem with Bitcoin? There's a few different things that happen when you start asking questions like this. Is you begin to understand where their education on the idea of what money is. That solidifies to you potentially how undereducated they are, which will get you some gained confidence on the subject of Bitcoin and money, because if you're interested in Bitcoin, you've probably learned significantly about money in general. And it might also allow you to understand that they maybe have a strong bias or a narrow mind, or yeah, again, just undereducated. This can put you again on the foot of the other person having to defend. You know, if you ask them who controls money, I've had this conversation with people just online, and I say, you know, who controls money? And they say, oh, I don't know, probably the same people that control Bitcoin, right? And they think it's one and the same, and it's really not, right? Once you start to understand Bitcoin, you understand that it's fully decentralized and that nobody really controls it, and that's why anyone can use it and everyone can benefit from using it. So it's just, you begin to understand where they're at and potentially where you could lead the conversation without having to be in that defensive mode. So what can happen is, if you get into these conversations and they might become kind of confrontational, or they might try to put you in that defensive position, it can feel pretty intense, right? It can be pretty intense to have a conversation about something that you're passionate about, something you believe in, and somebody's questioning your belief, right? It can put you into a feeling of sort of being under attack. Your heart rate will probably go up, you'll feel uncomfortable, and you'll maybe start to freeze up a little bit. So there's this idea of fight, flight, or freeze response. And that's what that is. That's that uncomfortable feeling, the heart rate. And you can either start to, you know, attack back and maybe start saying, like, you know, have fun staying poor, or, you know, Bitcoin is, you don't get it, you don't understand. Like, you know, that's sort of a combative attack kind of mentality. You can also, you know, try to flight. You know, you can try to be like, okay, well, whatever, you know, again, you know, I was just trying to help. I was just trying to help you understand, but you're clearly not interested. Let's just move on, change the subject. Or there's the freeze, where you're just like, oh yeah, you know what? Yeah, okay, you know, whatever. And then you don't really have much of a response. You're just kind of like, well, okay, well, that's your opinion. That's my opinion. It can be similar to flight in a way. It can be similar to fight in a way, but it's usually characterized a little bit more by having the inability to express how you actually think and feel about something. So in these moments of fight, flight, and freeze, remember that it really isn't up to you to save these people from the problems of being a fiat holder. It's really up to them at the day, you know, in the end of the day here. And all you're trying to do maybe is plant a seed for the future, so that if they see some authority that they believe in mention Bitcoin in the future, they can also say, oh yeah, that guy, that friend of mine, or that family member, or whoever, they also mentioned Bitcoin, and, you know, maybe I should talk to them again, and you know, ask some further questions now that I've been opened up by somebody else that I trust and believe in, or whatever, right? People have crazy biases. They believe authority figures a lot of time for their information. So that can, however, you could have planted a seed for them to be more receptive to it, or something like that. So no fight, no war is, well, usually no war is ended by one battle, right? So even myself, right? I learned about Bitcoin in 2012. I again learned about it in 2015, 16, 17. I really didn't start to acquire it mostly because I didn't have any money back then, but I didn't really start to acquire it, or even really do the super deep dive that I started in, you know, 2020, 21, and 22 was when I really started to understand it a lot more and dive deeper into it and acquire a lot more of it for myself. So it does take time. It takes endless battles to really understand it. And even myself, I'm still, you know, battling to understand more and more about it, and to have these conversations with more and more people. If you felt, you know, upset or disturbed by any kind of specific thing they say, this can be, you know, a bit of a moment for you to dig deeper into what that is, to question, okay, you know, if they said something like, well, you know, the early adopters have a bunch of Bitcoin, and, you know, that's unfair, right? Then if you feel like, oh, maybe that's true, maybe that isn't fair, maybe, you know, that those pain points of something where somebody else that, you know, they can have varying degrees of information. It's not necessary that these people that are against Bitcoin are undereducated on money. They could just have a very different opinion based on information they have. So, it could be important for you to dive deeper into that, like in these conversations, maybe afterwards or during them, try to recognize any sort of moments of feeling disturbed or upset by any specific thing that people say, because that's a moment, that's a trailhead for you to follow and follow down to figure out the answer to that, and to figure out what is actually accurate, is especially if you don't have the information right away, right? You know, that's probably why that's made you feel disturbed or upset, is because you don't have the answer to it, which just means that's just something for you to, go down that rabbit hole and to learn more about that specific side of Bitcoin or money or whatever the conversation is about. And this will, learning the truth about that more times than not is going to help you build conviction and help you be ready for the next time that somebody, questions that side of it or something. You'll already have the conviction built up. In my opinion, and from my experience, every single time that somebody has said something, oh, what about this thing about it? In the past when I wasn't as educated about it, or whatever, right? I mean, it can happen now too, but I've done a lot of studying, so it happens a little less. That'll be definitely a trigger for me to dive deeper into that subject in that specific way, do research, and it helps me build my conviction. I have not found anything about Bitcoin that breaks my conviction on it. The further I research, the more I dig, the more I understand that this has the best potential and possibility for ultimate change of our monetary system, and is currently already functioning as a monetary system outside of the one that we were born into in whatever nation we're in. So that's what I learn as I dig deeper. And those are sort of all of my points about having a conversation, a confrontational conversation perhaps, about Bitcoin and how to deal with it. If you guys have any other suggestions, if there's anything that you think would help any of the viewers that are, maybe having some of these conversations IRL or even digital, right? Comment them in the comment section, and we'll see you on the next episode of Bitcoin Not Crypto.